The WNBA is on the edge of collapse, and let's not sugarcoat it. The moment Caitlin Clark was ruled out for the rest of the season, the league's foundation cracked wide open. Because this isn't just one player missing games, this is the superstar who single-handedly carried ticket sales, ratings, and national attention now gone. And the worst part is, it didn't have to end like this. The Indiana Fever coaching staff, the front office, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, Adam Silver, every single executive who let the targeting, the cheap shots, the no calls, and the reckless scheduling continue is guilty of running their biggest star into the ground. And fans see it, they're furious, demanding refunds, calling for boycotts, flooding social media with outrage. Because Caitlin Clark's season didn't just die from an injury, it was destroyed by a league that refused to protect her. And now, the question isn't just how did this happen, but whether the WNBA itself can even survive without her. Caitlin Clark's season-ending announcement hit like a thunderclap, but if we're being honest, the warning signs were flashing from the very beginning. Back in May, it was a quad strain. In June, it turned into groin trouble. By July, she was still grimacing through games, and then August delivered the final blow with a bone bruise that made it official she was done. And here's the reality fans can't ignore. This wasn't bad luck. This was a disaster built by negligence. Possession after possession, she was shoved, grabbed, bumped off balance, thrown into help defense, and every time the referees looked away, everyone watching could see it. The officials had the whistle in their hand and swallowed it. The pattern wasn't subtle, it was blatant. And the Washington Post even put into print what fans were screaming online. The entire league was taking liberties with the one player who carried the sport. Think about that. Instead of being treated like the investment she was, Caitlin was left to take hit after hit with no protection. What do you think was going to happen? Injuries don't magically appear, they pile up. And the WNBA allowed that pile to grow until it crushed their biggest star. And if you think this is just about a few hard fouls, think again, because the targeting of Caitlin Clark goes back to her rookie season when she absorbed nearly 20% of all the league's flagrant fouls, with Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky leading the charge. These weren't basketball plays, these were intentional shots. And the worst part is, the players delivering them were laughing about it afterward. Imagine that the WNBA's most valuable draw, the one player filling arenas across the country, being assaulted on national television while referees stood there like statues. In any other workplace, people would be fired, maybe even jailed for that kind of abuse. Instead, the league allowed it to become her reality every night. And this year, it didn't stop. The Indiana Fever brought in Sophie Cunningham, and suddenly she's taking the same punishment, piling up flagrant fouls right alongside Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Fans aren't blind, they see the hypocrisy. The WNBA brags about record attendance, booming merchandise sales, and sponsorship deals fueled by Clark's name, but when it came time to protect her, they treated her like she was disposable. That's not just negligence, it's betrayal. The hypocrisy is what burns the most. The WNBA begged for headlines about record-breaking ticket sales, about Caitlin Clark selling out NBA-sized arenas, about new sponsorship deals worth millions, all because of one player. Yet, when it came to the simplest responsibility, protecting her on the court, they acted like she was just another rookie. Night after night, she was battered coming off screens, denied space with blatant hand checks, shoved midair on drives, and not only did officials ignore it, but opposing players knew they could get away with it. That's why it became a league-wide strategy. If you shut down Caitlin with physical play, the refs weren't going to save her. And here's the kicker. Those little hits added up. The quad strain in May, the groin tear in July, the bone bruise in August, none of it was mysterious. They were the natural result of letting her body get worn down by unchecked physical punishment. Clark was forced to keep playing because empty arenas weren't an option. Fans had already paid, networks had already written checks, and the league's entire momentum was tied to her name. The decision was obvious: risk her long-term health to keep the cash machine rolling. By the time July rolled around, the writing was already on the wall. Caitlin Clark wasn't moving the same. Her burst to the rim slowed, her cuts looked forced, and every time she landed awkwardly, you could see her wincing. Coaches saw it, teammates saw it, even fans sitting in the upper deck saw it. Yet she was still logging heavy minutes because the Fever and the league couldn't afford to sit her. That's not precaution, that's exploitation. The medical staff's job was to protect her, even if Caitlin begged to play. But instead, they kept taping her up and sending her back out like nothing was wrong. And that Connecticut Sun game on the 15th of July told the whole story. Clark pushed through obvious pain, dragged her team to a late win, and then left with a right groin injury that effectively ended her season. Anyone who knows sports understands injuries compound if you don't let them heal, but the WNBA doubled down on overuse. Back-to-back games, constant travel, all while she was the #1 target for every defense. It wasn't just risky, it guaranteed a breakdown. And that's exactly what happened. When the official announcement finally dropped, Caitlin's own words cut deeper than any press release. She admitted she'd been in the gym for hours every single day, chasing one goal, getting back on the floor. And after all that work, after weeks of silence and false hope, the update was brutal. She wasn't coming back this season. She wrote that disappointment wasn't even a big enough word to describe how she felt. Think about that, one of the fiercest competitors in the game, reduced to admitting she had no chance, not because she lacked talent or desire, but because her body had been broken down piece by piece under the league's watch. And while fans were being fed day-to-day tags and precautionary labels, inside the locker room, everyone knew she wasn't close to ready. Meanwhile, stadiums kept promoting her name, tickets kept being sold, and broadcast partners kept cashing in on the possibility of her return. Fans weren't just upset she was injured, they were furious that they'd been strung along. It wasn't bad luck, it was a calculated decision to keep hope alive until the truth could no longer be hidden. And then came the league's response, or should we say, the lack of one. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert finally addressed Caitlin Clark's season-ending collapse, and instead of owning up to what fans had witnessed, she delivered a sanitized corporate statement full of vague optimism and empty promises. No accountability for referees who swallowed whistles, no admission that the targeting was out of control, not even a hint that changes would be made to protect players moving forward. Fans were stunned. This was the biggest star the WNBA had seen in decades, and the commissioner treated her injury like just another line on a financial report. Social media erupted, season ticket holders demanded refunds, longtime supporters called it betrayal. And instead of calming the fire, Engelbert poured gas on it by pivoting back to her favorite talking points: expansion, revenue growth, and new sponsors, while ignoring the reality that those very sponsors only signed on because of Caitlin Clark. The disconnect was so glaring that even diehard fans admitted they felt duped. The message was clear: profits mattered more than players, and the league's leadership was completely out of touch. The fallout was immediate and brutal. The moment Caitlin Clark was ruled out, ticket prices across the league fell off a cliff. All-Star Weekend, which was hyped as Clark's grand stage in Indiana, collapsed. Overnight seats that were going for over $200 dropped to barely $60, and resale sites flooded with fans trying to dump tickets they had circled for months. Sponsors who had signed on for the Clark effect suddenly found themselves tied to games nobody cared about. Networks that gambled primetime slots on her matchups saw ratings nosedive, and arenas that had been packed to the rafters just weeks earlier now looked half empty. Fans didn't just feel disappointed, they felt lied to. For months, they had been told she was day to day, only to learn she had no realistic chance of returning. That disconnect between what the league knew and what the public was told wasn't just a misstep, it was a betrayal of trust. And when trust evaporates, so does money. By August, the WNBA's momentum wasn't slipping, it was collapsing. One injury had exposed just how fragile the entire business model really was. By the time the dust settled, fans weren't just angry they were organizing. Boycotts stopped being empty threats and turned into a movement. Playoff tickets that were supposed to be the crown jewel of the season went unsold, with whole sections left empty in arenas that had once been buzzing when Clark was on the floor. Social media campaigns urged fans to withhold their money until the league showed accountability, and the frustration spread beyond Fever supporters. It became a league-wide backlash. Even national voices like Colin Cowherd admitted he stopped covering the WNBA once Clark was sidelined, flat out saying she was the only reason he'd led his show with the league in the first place. That's the reality. Without Clark, the spotlight dims, the momentum stalls, and the hype evaporates. What was supposed to be the WNBA's breakthrough year is ending in silence, empty seats, and distrust. Fans now see the league for what it is, a business that used its star until she broke, then shrugged off the consequences. And unless leadership steps up with real change, boycotts will gut the playoffs before they even begin. Caitlin Clark's season didn't collapse because of one unlucky play. It collapsed because the WNBA refused to protect her. From ignored fouls to reckless scheduling, from medical mismanagement to PR spin, every decision chipped away at the one player holding the league together. And now, the WNBA is paying the price. Fans feel betrayed, sponsors are nervous, ticket sales are plummeting, and the playoffs that should have been a showcase for growth are instead a reminder of what happens when you put profits ahead of players. But here's the twist. Clark isn't gone forever. She'll be back in 2026. And when she returns, the question will be whether the league learned anything or if it's doomed to repeat the same cycle. Until then, the Fever have Kelsey Mitchell battling every night, Aaliyah Boston stepping up as a leader, Lexi Hull grinding through adversity, but make no mistake, without Caitlin, the WNBA is on life support. Fans don't want empty statements, they want accountability, fairness, and real change. Because if that doesn't happen, the trust that was broken this season might never come back.